day, amazing viewers and subscribers, and welcome to a fun Doctor Who little collection type series. So I was going to do another video basically going through everything I own from each Doctor, going through like the Big Finish stuff for the 8th and War Doctors, but early today a very unusual request came through somebody that messaged me on TikTok. Now they were watching my video on TikTok, basically where I did a whole video of basically on my shelving of everything I own of Destiny of the Daleks, with me meeting David Goodison in October, and I'm very excited to meet my very first actor that plays Davros. And she saw that everything I own of that story, of that particular story from 1979. And she asked me if I could do a video series on my YouTube channel because she's a big fan of my channel and she really wants me to go through it, each and every single one. So I said, you know what, I'd be happy to do this because you asked me, and of course it is like a request. So anyone who has got requests, I would be happy to do these videos for you. So she asked me if I could do a video, basically go through my entire whole Doctor Who collection, going by story. And she wants me to do this like a weekly sort of thing. So basically like my review series I do on Mondays, where this Monday's review is basically on the Keys and Marinus. So she's asked me if I could do a video on my collection going from the very first story to the most recent story, which is of course the Reality War, or basically Wish Worlds and Reality War, which is a two-parter. So I like to also stretch out. I don't own every sort of thing for every single Doctor Who story because the 60 stories were missing. So even though they did come out in the Target Book range, they didn't actually have a VHS release. They don't even have a DVD release unless you have the reconstructions DVDs that you brought from somebody on eBay like I did, which is how I managed to get every single story on DVD, which is why I'm enjoying my review series, because I'm rewatching every single story on a Sunday and I'll be reviewing them on a Monday. So let's start off with the very first story, aka The Unearthly Child. So basically, The Unearthly Child took a long time to come out in the Target Book range. Now, don't forget, the Target Book range started off around about 1973. So by the time we got to 1981, Terrance Dicks basically rewrote the entire episode in storybook form for us Doctor Who fans to enjoy. And of course, it is Doctor Who, The Unearthly Child. Of course, you've got the TARDIS in the Junkyard, aka 76 Doctor's Lane. And of course, you got this fantastic bit prior saying first published the very first Doctor Who story. The very first Doctor Who story. Now, I haven't read this Target book yet, but it is something I'm glad to actually own because I'm currently in the middle of reading other Target books, because the problem with Target books, I end up buying them and I ended up like getting behind on the reading because I'm stuck in a Target book that I'm really enjoying. So I do like me reading and I do love the Target books. But yeah, I haven't really read this story yet after having it since 2023, 2022, around about that time period. So yeah, this came out back in 1981. So that is a nice piece of basically Doctor Who merch, the very first piece of Doctor Who merch for the very first story. So fans had to wait all the way up to 1990 for the very first VHS release of the story. And of course you have this VHS, which is basically a fantastic picture epilogue between Hartnell and basic Caroline Ford, where they kind of got sliced in the middle. So yeah, this was absolutely fantastic to own. I actually got this given through a Facebook seller, really, when I brought a bunch of VHS tapes back in around about 2019, 2020 sort of time. It was just before COVID hit. I actually travelled to a house in Birmingham. I actually gave my dad the petrol for me to go and pick up these VHS tapes. And The Unearthly Child was part of that very first lot, which was absolutely brilliant. I absolutely do enjoy the fact I do own the very first release of The Unearthly Child on VHS. Again, this came out back in 1990, which was absolutely brilliant, which is basically 7 years before I was born. And a year after Doctor Who was basically cancelled by the BBC. But yeah, The Unearthly Child, so basically you had 1981 to 1990 for basically a physical release, so you can actually sit down and watch The Unearthly Child. But until then, you had to have the Target book. And then, of course, in the year 2000, they did a re-release, basically, of upscaling the original story. So basically, they did like we do get with the Blu-rays, where we basically get upscale versions. And this was basically a remastered. So they kind of remastered the first two stories back in the year 2000 and 2001. So in the year 2000, we had The Unearthly Child. re-released, but this is a brand new version. And of course, you got like the TARDIS, you got the Doctor, Ian and Barbara. No Susan, and of course you have starring William Hartnell on the back, and that's of course the back with some pictures, where the previous one you didn't get any pictures at all. And then in 2006 it came out on DVD, but it was part of a box set called The Beginning, which basically you get the Daleks and the Edge of Destruction with it. And of course the DVD version, you have 76 Totter's Lane, you got the TARDIS, and of course the Wastelands and the Time Vortex from the Cavemen episode. So that's basically it for physical media, basically going from the Target Book range, VHS, and of course DVD. As unfortunately at this current point in time, in 2025, we have no DVD, or well, we basically have no Blu-ray release for The Unearthly Child. It will be part of Doctor Who The Collection season 1, I think. But that's really it. So that's basically it I own for physical media release, going through the Target Book range that came out in 1981, the first VHS from 1990, the second VHS release in 2000, and of course the 2006 DVD release with the beginning box set. Now, that's not all of the stuff I own for The Unearthly Child, because there are some figure sets out there for the story, like the Eagle Moss one with the Doctor, Susan, Ian and Barbara. I don't know where to find this set. I have been trying like second-hand dealerships to try and find these. I've been trying to look through eBay and stuff. It's very, very expensive, but my luck came in, of course, 2021, 2022, or 2023, when the B&M range released the first Doctor and TARDIS from The Unearthly Child, which was absolutely brilliant. So I did manage to pick up my first and only at this current point in time, my only figure release for The Unearthly Child. So of course you have the promo log of the first Doctor in his original clothes before they had to do the reshot, because you got the original pilot episode, and then of course you got the basically the new version that they had to refilm. So yeah, it's absolutely fantastic to own this figure set. Now there is another figure set with Hartnell's real clothes that he wears as the first Doctor, because they kind of changed it a little bit between the pilot and the original broadcast one. And that figure came out back in 2010, 2011, where basically the first Doctor is wearing his cape, he's got the walking stick, and of course he's got the skull that he was going to use to bash somebody's head, like one of the caveman heads in. But yeah, that's technically it for the very first story in my collection, aka Doctor Who The Unearthly Child, the Target Book, 2 VHSs, and the DVD, and of course the figure set. So what do you own in your collection from the very first story? Do you own every single piece of merch for that story in particular, or do you own every single piece for season 1? I would be happy if I can get my hands on the first Doctor set that came out, because it kind of represents The Unearthly Child. I really want to get that. But yeah, currently in my collection, this is all I own for the very first story of Doctor Who, the Target Book from 1981, the 2 VHS tapes from 1990 and 2000, sorry, and of course the DVD from 2006. So join me next Saturday, where I will show you everything I own for the second ever story, the Daleks. And I own quite a lot of stuff for that story, quite a lot of Daleks. Like going through figures, basically going through VHSs, DVDs. I own a lot. And of course, it is available on Blu-ray as well, because of the coloured version. So you will see everything I own for that story. Thank you for watching. Please do like, subscribe, and share. Enjoy from awesome Doctor Who content.